This is Dr. Vibha Tiwari, Assistant Professor of English, College Education, Rajasthan. Students, in today's video, I'm going to discuss with you people a very famous poem by the great metaphysical poet John Donne entitled as Go and Catch a Falling Star. But before I take up the poem, let's have some basic facts regarding the poet himself. John Donne was born on January the 22nd in the year 1572 in England, and he died on 31st March 1631. So within a span of some 58-59 years, he actually created masterpieces for English literature. He was married to Anne More, and he got his formal education in the University of Cambridge and later on in the University of Oxford. If we talk about the major themes that have been explored by Donne in his poetry, so basically he has written poems about love, women, sexuality, religion and death. So we can very well see that he has explored a variety of themes in his poetry. Now here I would like to mention that Donne has been discussed in detail in two of the videos, Donne as a poet and Donne and metaphysical poetry. These two videos are already there on this particular channel, the Gyandu channel, an initiative of College Education Rajasthan. So kindly refer to that. And that's why I'm not going into you can say very deep details regarding the poet, because that will be only the reiteration of the facts. Let's discuss something about the unique qualities of Donne's poetry. So, if we talk about the qualities of Donne's poetry, basically his poetry reflects the very essence of metaphysical poetry. So, his poetical works are noted for their metaphorical and sensual style, and he has penned, you can say, a variety of genres of English literature that include sonnet, love poems, religious poems, Latin translation, epigrams, elegies, songs, and satires. Now, what's an epigram? Because I think rest of the things are familiar. You might be familiar with the rest of the things, but epigram. Now, epigram is a short poem. Basically, it's a satirical in nature, and it's very witty. It has got a witty ending. So you can very well see that he has just almost touched upon all the genres of literature, and he was such a master of all these things that he up till now, and I think in the coming ages also, he will be remembered for his great contribution to literature. He's also known for his sermons, religious sermons. And if we talk about his style, Donne's style is characterized by abrupt openings and various paradoxes, ironies, and dislocations. Now, I remember one of the examples, because I think you might be familiar with the rest of the terms, paradoxes. If we talk about this term in Hindi, it's called virodhabhas. If two opposite things are mentioned in a same sentence, then that leads to paradox. Ironies and dislocation. Now, dislocation is the change in the setup of the sentence. The sentence is formed in such a way that it gives you, though it is meaningful, but normally it doesn't follow the grammatical rules and patterns. Like in the poem, in one of Donne's poem, Death Be Not Proud, there is one sentence, and soonest are best men with thee do go. With thee do go. Normally what we say, they go with you, but here he is saying with you they go. So there is a change in the setup, there is a change in the pattern of the sentence, and that leads to dislocation. So he is quite you can say master in such artistry, and this is his particular style of writing. And if you ponder on these things, these all are the qualities, basic qualities of metaphysical poetry. So that's why Donne is regarded as one of the chief components of metaphysical poetry. Now, let's have some facts about the poem itself. The poem was actually published in 1633, and it is clearly divided into three parts, and each part consists of 9 lines. And the rhyme scheme of the poem is A B A B C C D D D. So there is a particular set pattern in the poem, and in each part, you can say the progression of the poem is based on the things that have been mentioned in a particular part. So there is a kind of flow in the whole poem, and the tone of the poem is light and humorous. There is a kind of satire also. I'll discuss that in detail when we'll be analyzing the poem. So if we talk about the theme of the poem, the basic theme of this poem is women's infidelity, and it is very much in you can say it was very much in vogue at the time of Donne. In Donne's era, basically the poets were exploring such themes, and there was a misogynist approach to women. So the poem explores a traditional and misogynistic literary theme of Donne's era, and basically deals with women's romantic infidelity. So this is the theme of this poem. The whole poem revolves around this particular theme, that everything the poet seriously mentions in this poem, that every impossible thing may become possible in this world, but it is quite impossible to find a woman who is both loyal and beautiful. So probably the female readers might not be very happy with this fact, but this is the theme, we can't help it. So this is basically the poem's core subject, that it deals with women's infidelity. Now let's analyze the poem. I'm going to explain the whole thing to you people, and if needed I'll be making one more video where we'll be discussing about the literary devices used in the poem. But first, the explanation of the lines. Go and catch a falling star, get with child a mandrake root. Now, the poem has a very abrupt opening, and this is one of the qualities, as I told you earlier also, this is one of the qualities of metaphysical poetry. The poem opens abruptly, without any formal introduction, without any, you can say, kind of uh, previous familiarization of the poets with the subject. The poet simply throws a challenge in the very first line, and the language is also a bit colloquial. So he says, go and catch a falling star. He challenges the readers in the very opening line, and he says, okay, now you go and try to catch a meteor. And we all know it's very impossible. It's not possible to catch a falling star, it's not possible to catch a meteor. Still he is challenging. See, why is he doing so? Because he just wants to emphasize the fact that he'll be narrating in the later lines. So he says, go and catch a falling star, get with child a mandrake root. Now many of my students might be confused with this particular plant, mandrake. So I searched from the net itself and got a picture of the mandrake plant. So I'm just sharing with that picture with you people. If you closely look at this plant, the root is in the shape of an infant, but it's just a plant, it's just the root of a plant. You cannot get a child out of it. I mean, if somebody challenges you to do so, it's quite impossible. You cannot get a child from the root of a mandrake plant, though the shape of the root is very much like that of an infant, but it's an impossible task. So he simply wants to, as I told you earlier also, he simply wants to increase the emphasis, increase the impact of the satire that he is going to have in the later lines. So he says, go and catch a falling star. One should go and try to catch a meteor. Get with child a mandrake root, or just get a child from the root of a mandrake plant, the plant that I showed you just now. Tell me where all past years are. Now, can anybody tell that the time, that the bygone time, where one has kept that? I mean, it's quite impossible. It's not a solid thing that you can keep it in some almirah or some carton and tell, okay, this is the place that where I have kept the past years. It's rather impossible. It's a vague notion. So he's simply challenging. He says, tell me where all past years are. He challenges the readers to tell him where the bygone time is. or who cleft the devil's foot. Now we even don't know exactly whether anything like this, like devil, whether that actually exists or not. I mean, it's quite debatable, but he is challenging, and what he is challenging is saying that, okay, tell me who has actually cleft the devil's foot, because very often we have seen the picture of devil with hoofs and claws, and we have seen that the shape of the foot is very strange. I mean, there are the fingers, or it's in the shape of a paw. So he says, and there is a gap between the, I'll say, fingers. There is a gap between them. So he says, okay, tell me who has actually just cleft that. Tell me who cleft the devil's foot. So if you seriously look at all these things, whether that is whether that is the job of catching a falling star, or getting a child from the root of a mandrake plant, or telling about the bygone time, or just telling who has actually cleft the devil's foot, these all tasks are impossible. Now you might be wondering, then why is he challenging you people to do so? Because he simply, I told you in the very beginning, he simply wants to create a kind of impact. So when he will be actually narrating you the reason behind it, there will be a kind of jolt that the reader will feel, and that pressure, that impact is given by this kind of comparison, the comparison between these impossible tasks, and the task that he will be actually giving you, the challenge that he will be actually throwing at his readers. So he simply, in the whole paragraph, he is simply giving you all sorts of challenges, all sorts of impossible tasks, and he is demanding the completion of these tasks. Let's proceed further. Teach me to hear mermaids singing, or to keep off envy's stinging. Now I have just used a mermaid in the background also, so that the thing might be clear to you people what's actually a mermaid. A mermaid is also a mythological creature, half woman and half fish. We actually don't know whether such a thing exists or not, but it is there in the mythology. It's a part of the mythological stories. So he says, teach me to hear mermaids singing. Again, the same impossible task. He says, okay, tell me how to listen to the songs of mermaid. So when we actually don't know whether such a thing exists or not, how can we teach someone to listen to its song? Or to keep off envy's stinging. Now this is the most impossible task. There is no one, I think, in this world who can admit that he or she is totally aloof from having envious feeling towards anything, towards XYZ. So many things are there. One might be away from this kind of feeling from a great number of things, but there you can say there are chances that there can be one or two things, not great in number, but at least there will be something about which one feels envious. It's rather impossible that to admit that one can keep oneself away from envy, the feeling of envy, the feeling of being jealous. It's also impossible. So he says, or to keep off envy's stinging, and find what wind serves to advance an honest mind. And he also throws a challenge. He says, okay, just find what kind of wind is there which makes the mind honest. I mean, we badly need such kind of wind even in India because of the growing corruption. So had this thing been possible, we would have been be enjoying a different status now. So he simply is challenging. I mean, it's rather impossible. No such thing exists in this world which can make someone honest. So he here also in the second paragraph also, he is throwing certain challenges which are impossible to complete. So he says, teach me to hear mermaids singing. He simply wants to just highlight the fact that these things are impossible, but later on he admits that these things might become possible one day, but what he actually wants to suggest, that can never be possible. So he says, teach me to hear mermaid singing. Mermaid in Hindi we call it jalpari. सो आई टोल्ड यू दैट इट इज़ रादर डिबेटेबल कि ऐसा कोई चीज़ होता भी है कि नहीं, जलपरी होती है भी कि नहीं, तो उसका गाना कैसे सुनना हम किसी को सिखा सकते हैं. सो ही इज़ जस्ट throwing these sort of challenges to create an impact. So he says, teach me to hear mermaids singing, or to keep off envy's stinging. Also he just throws the challenge of uh, telling him about how to keep oneself away from the feeling of jealousy, which is also very impossible, and find what wind serves to advance an honest mind. And he also throws this challenge that someone should tell him that what kind of wind is there which makes the mind of a person honest. So if we closely look at both the paragraphs, the previous one and this one, in both the stanzas, one thing is very clear, that he has thrown a kind of challenge to the readers. And whatever tasks he has narrated up till now, they all fall in the category of impossible tasks. And I told you, as the theme of the poem is women infidelity, especially women's romantic infidelity. So later on he'll say that these things might be possible, but finding a lady who is loyal and beautiful, that's quite impossible. So this is the, you can say, way he is getting the things hyped, and that's why we will be able to feel the real force of the satire when he will just narrate the things of the women infidelity to us. If thou beest born to strange sights, things invisible to see. Now, again, continuing in the same way, now this is the second part that we are taking up now. He says, if thou beest born to strange sights. Now, use of beest, these are now not anymore in vogue, but at the time of Donne, this is the archaic English that was very much in fashion at that time. So the whole poem is replete with such kind of words. So he says, if thou beest born to strange sights, things invisible to see. He says, if you are having the capability of seeing strange things which are not possible for a normal human being, things invisible to see, and if you are able to see even those things which are invisible to a normal eye, write 10,000 days and nights. And with these two qualities, the quality to see strange sights and the quality to see invisible things, if you are having these two qualities, and along with that, if you go on riding for 10,000 days and nights, I mean, it's a big span, it's a great span of time, till 8 snow white hairs on thee, and you go on riding for 10,000 days and nights till you become very old. Perhaps there are very rare chances of someone being alive till then, but he is just challenging. He says, if you are having the quality of looking at strange things, if you have the quality to see invisible things, and if with these two qualities you go on riding for 10,000 days and nights, till, because of the process of aging, you become very old, extremely old, your hair might become white, perhaps, if they remain, otherwise one may become bald also. So he says, if you just go on riding for 10,000 days and nights till your hair actually becomes snow white, though when thou returnest wilt tell me all strange wonders that befell thee, then surely when such kind of a person who's having two exceptional qualities, one, to look at invisible, to look at strange sights, to have the power to see actually the strange sights, and the capability of looking at invisible things, of seeing invisible things, if such a person goes on riding for 10,000 days and nights, surely when such a person will come back, he will have enough number of things to share which a normal person could never have experienced. So he says, though when thou returnest wilt tell me all strange wonders that befell thee. He says, when such a person will come back to him, he will have all sorts of things to tell, to share with the poet. And surely he'll be telling about so many wonderful things that actually happened to that person. Now comes the most, you can say, awaited lines of the poem that I have been telling you since the very beginning of the poem. And swear, nowhere lives a woman true and fair. He says, even then, that fellow will swear that there is no such woman in this whole world who might be loyal as well as beautiful. So that's what that was the thing that I told you in the very beginning, that the female readers might not approve of this poem, but it is one of the very important poems, and people really enjoy it. So take it in a lighter vein, because let me share the fact with you people that Donne is actually regarded as a very great love poet, and he has actually celebrated and, you can say, praised the beauty of women and the love of women in most of his poems. But probably there are whims and moods of the poets, when in a certain kind of mood he might have written composed this poem. So let's take it in a lighter vein. So he says, though when thou returnest wilt tell me all strange wonders that befell thee. He says, when such a person will come back, he will have enough number of things to tell, and surely he'll be having a record of all strange things that happened to him. But even then, that fellow will swear and say that there is no such woman in the whole world who might be true, who might be loyal as well as fairy. That means beautiful. If thou findest one, let me know. And he says, okay, I give you a kind of, you can say, kind of uh, promise. If you are able to find any such person, any such lady who is both loyal and beautiful, then kindly let me know. Do tell me about that person. Do tell me about the existence of that such a kind of lady, because up till now he has made up his mind that there is no such woman in the whole world. So he says, if anybody is able to find such a woman, that fellow should tell the poet, should inform the poet about the existence of such a woman. Such a pilgrimage were sweet. Here, pilgrimage word has been used for a special purpose. He says, meeting such kind of a lady will be as holy unto me as going on a pilgrimage. So he says, such a pilgrimage were sweet. यानी उस तरह की लेडी से मिलना मेरे लिए तीर्थ यात्रा पर जाने के बराबर होगा. So अगर तुम्हें कोई ऐसी लेडी मिलती है, let me know, मुझे ज़रूर बताना, क्योंकि मेरे लिए उससे मिलना एक पिलग्रिमेज, एक तीर्थ यात्रा पर जाने जैसा स्वीट होगा, उतना ही मज़ेदार होगा, उतना ही अच्छा, उतना ही प्लेजेंट होगा. But suddenly he changes. There is a shift in his mood. He says, yet do not. I would not go. He says, okay, don't trouble yourself. Don't tell me, because I won't go to meet that lady. And he gives you the reason. He says, though at next door we might meet. Perhaps that lady might be living next to my home. I mean, I won't have to go on riding to meet that lady. Perhaps somebody would tell me that the lady is residing very near to me. Even then, I won't be opening my door. I won't do even that minute labor to meet that lady. Why? He'll give you the reason in the later part. He says, if thou findest one, let me know, such a pilgrimage were sweet. He says, if you are ever able to find such a woman who is both loyal, who is both beautiful, and who is loyal and beautiful, then just let me know. Tell me about her. And for me, it will be a pilgrimage to meet such kind of a lady. But suddenly there is a shift in his mood. He says, okay, don't tell me, don't do it. I would not go. I won't go to meet that lady. Though she might be my neighbor, that means I have just to open my door to meet that lady. Even then, I won't be doing any such kind of effort. And he gives you the reason in the very last part of the poem. He says, though she were true when you met her. He says, no doubt she might have been true when that fellow who is going to inform the poet about the existence of such a lady, that lady might have been true when that person actually met that lady. And last, till you write your letter, perhaps she might have been loyal, she might have been faithful, till that fellow wrote a letter about her to the poet. But the poet is very sure. He says, yet she will be false ere I come to two or three. This is the very, you can say, the very jolt that one receives at the end, especially the female readers, that he is so sure about this thing. He says, okay, there might be someone you may feel free to tell me about that fellow, but that lady, but I won't be going to meet her. Why? He simply narrates the reason. He says, okay, she might have been true, she might have been loyal when that person who went there to meet, who actually found that lady, the existence of that lady, she might have been true, she might have been beautiful at that time, and she could have lasted till the person wrote a letter about informing about the existence of that lady to the poet. But the poet is very sure. He says, till I'll find time to go and meet her, she would have proven false, she would have betrayed not one, rather two or three persons. He's so sure of this fact. So he says, okay, I am not going to trouble myself, and don't you trouble yourself about informing the existence of such a lady. I won't go, because I know very well that it is probably he simply wants to say that they are fickle minded, and they are not, you can say, they don't stick to one thing. They very soon change their choices. They are very restless sort of beings, and very soon they change their partners. This is the general perception that he is having about ladies. So he says, don't write anything about her, because I won't go to meet her, because I know very well, though she might have been true, though she might have been faithful when you wrote this letter about her to me, but I know till I'll go to meet her, she would have betrayed two or three persons. So, with this, the poem ends. I hope you might have enjoyed it, and we'll be analyzing the various points of discussing the various points regarding the literary devices and language of the poem in my next video. Till then, bye bye from my side.